Welcome to Woven Soft Edges, Deep Roots, a space where bodies, culture, and transformation meet. I'm Sarah, a body worker, a tender of community care, and inviting you into conversations that nourish and ground. If you love exploring the intersections of healing, creativity, and belonging, consider supporting this work on Patreon. Your generosity helps sustain the quiet labor of community care and keeps these conversations flowing. You can also connect with me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are available in the show notes. Now, let's dive in. Hello and welcome. I have my friend Rachel Wolff back again to talk today. I'm Sara Newberry, and I am a barefoot massage therapist, a somatic mind body coach, and a motherhood support practitioner. And Rachel, tell me a little bit about you.
Yes, I own Mama Bear Massage, which is a perinatal practice in San Antonio, Texas. We're a trauma-informed group of practitioners who provide both in-clinic and in-home services. I'm also an educator, CEU provider,
Oh yeah, I'm a CE provider too.
as is Sarah. Yes.
I I was kind of going back in some of our other episodes to like do some editing stuff, and it was like you and I both have so many things that we do.
It's really beautiful because, again, we've known each other, what, since 2008 or 9 or something. It was pretty
Mhm.
early on in our careers.
Yeah.
And of course, back in St. Louis. And we've had very different journeys in our personal, professional journeys, but there's always been some congruency.
Mhm.
And yeah, it is very beautiful and cool for me to have, like the whale articulated, is we've kept eyes on each other's footprints,
Mm,
but our footprints have wandered and done different things. But like there's a lot of congruency to the flow of it and the things that
yeah.
we're into. It's very
Yeah,
cool.
and I love how poetic and you're always so full of like great metaphors and things like that.
Oh, thanks. You are too. Well, it works for you because you're such a visual thinker. So,
It's true.
yeah. No, I love, yeah. I really cherish our friendship and you is special. Okay.
Yeah, I love our conversations for sure. So, I am coming out of something that I lovingly call Grief Week. And this year sort of came up differently than years past. And yeah, I would love to talk about it and what that is for me and what it could be for other people. And and any questions you may have, you know? Uh and like maybe what does this have to do with everything else that we talk about? But it definitely most definitely does. So, I am a grieving child. I both of my parents have died, and right around September 5th is my mom's birthday. September 6th is the anniversary of my divorce, and September 7th is my mom's death anniversary. Now, my dad died on August 15th, which was last month, which I always do something for him that day, but I sort of like compile everything up on this week since those 3 dates are kind of like boom, 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 you know? Um, and this year was a little bit different. I usually take the whole week off and I use it as a time of reflection. I almost always go to the Cathedral Basilica because it was one of my mom's favorite places. And I didn't do that this year because I had my own health stuff in the beginning of the year, and I kind of needed to be at work is what it comes down to. But I did start a new tradition this year of going back to my hometown where my parents are buried. And in the past, I've not really cared much about like that physical gravesite thing that a lot of other people care about. And I can't really tell you why this year is different in that way, but it did feel very anchoring to be there. And And at the same time, I also feel like there's a lot of other things that we do as a family to honor our dead. And I could speak at lengths about the importance of honoring our dead. But what I think is more important is that grief is part of that process of tending and like tending and working with honoring, but also healing and like moving through it. Does that make sense?
More, yes. The short answer is yes, completely.
Yeah. Um, and I really believe that, like there's lots of different kinds of grief. But at this point now, I've attuned myself to be looking for the grief in like every situation because what I have found is that when my grief goes unattended, it kind of like wreaks havoc in the rest of my system. Do you know, like not
Mhm.
even like my body, but like it ripples out into the world in a way that is not helpful and it sucks. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't feel good, right? And I just feel like I have taken like a really head-on look at this grief thing. And I still, by the way, I still have like so much grief to handle and to unravel and to be with. It's not like this is an easy process, like, oh, I just turn around and look at grief and then it goes away. No, it's actually, you start to then see the layers on the layers on the layers of grief. And like I said, now it becomes like I look for grief everywhere. I look for grief first because when I can see grief and I can be inviting grief to the table, we're all in a relationship then rather than grief pushing its way to the forefront of situations. And I see that so often when people try to like be okay when they're not okay.
So I wanted to ask you if you could maybe speak a little bit more to what you mean when you say you look for grief.
Mhm.
Do you mean in other people or uh, clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so the easiest way for me to explain that is like when I'm working with my clients and they're telling me about a hard thing. I mean, because it's easy to look at it for myself, but to take it outside of myself and be with other people in it, it's like when my client tells me about maybe a hard thing that's going on. Like for example, I have a client whose mom is really sick and he's like trying to figure out how to be with her. I'm looking for the grief. I'm
Mm.
looking for like, yes, there's worry and concern about his mom. There's like the really nuts and bolts of like she has this thing and this medicine goes with this thing, right? But there's like a fear underlying that, right? Of like I might lose my mom.
Mhm.
And when we don't have a anchoring in the grief space in our culture, um, that sadness, that fear, that maybe even anger, that feeling of the lack thereof, it can be insidious. It can like eat you up. And I've seen that so many
Would
times.
it be fair to describe it as like, because the image that's coming to my mind is like a wound that's festering instead of scabbing and healing and becoming a scar. It's still just, it's like oozing. It's not healing. It's still just like you keep poking at it. It's just, it's not a well wound.
We are so graphic. But I also feel like grief, do people pleasers, right? Like I have those tendencies and I've healed some and I probably still have some of those tendencies at times, right? But like people pleasing is truly an overriding of your own system, right? Like
Mm.
I'm going to override my wants, desires, and needs so that I can, please you, right? But I feel like when grief is present and we're not acknowledging the grief, something similar happens where it's like
Mm.
it's almost like if grief was a person in the room and excuse me, you would like talk to every single person in the room, but you would just like ignore that grief person.
Mm.
Hello, friend. If today's conversation is resonating with you, I'd love to invite you deeper into the woven community. When you join Patreon, you're helping sustain the quiet labor of community care, supporting the life and work of a body worker and tender of soft spaces. Even small contributions ripple outward and make this work possible. You can also follow along on Instagram and TikTok for somatic practices, reflections, and ways to stay rooted in your own soft edges. All the links are in the show notes. Now, back to the episode. Like you've been that person where it's like maybe you're at a wedding.
Yes, yes, yes. Like so self-abandonment and the avoidance of facing the grief monster or the
Right,
grief wound or whatever, insert whatever metaphor for grief, the person in the room. The avoidance that's there is sort of congruent with that same space of self-abandonment, of not facing what needs to be faced. Is that,
right,
yeah.
right. And I mean, it makes sense, right? Because in our culture, in this like Western North American culture, there's no grief rituals. There's no anchors in processing the grief via community, via somatically, via
Mhm.
ritual that can be like there is, but there isn't, you know? Okay, so for example, like if someone dies, you have a wake or you have like a funeral procession, celebration of life thing, and then the next day you have a funeral where they actually are buried or whatever. That's kind of typical, right? That is technically a grief process. That's like a ritual rooted in grief.
Mhm.
But it's like not enough. It's not like
Yeah, it can be a
God.
little forced too. I'm sorry to cut. I'm thinking I almost want to replace the word grief with mourning. It's like a forced ritual of mourning where you wear black, the family sits in the front row. It's almost like a wedding. Like there's just certain things that you're supposed to do. The individual process or processes is not part of that picture, part of that script of here's how you should mourn. There you go.
Mhm,
And while we're on the subject of cultural norms and mores and what we do to ritualize grief and mourning, one of the things that I have to insert before my ADD brain takes the ball and runs is one of the beautiful things about life here in San Antonio is that I've been given this gorgeous introduction to Dia de los Muertos. Have you seen the movie Coco
oh yes, I
and
love
Day of the
Coke.
Dead? Right, isn't that incredible? Right, like I want to cry just thinking about it. Um, but here they have this incredible, and it's at the end of October, so it's kind of around the corner here. It's in about a month and some change. Um, and it is, Sarah, it is such a celebration of life
Mhm,
beyond this realm. And Remember Me, oh my God, I just got choked up thinking about that. It is so incredibly colorful and um it's just a gorgeous tradition.
mhm,
And it's full of lots of little rituals and lots of little things that people do or how they show up or how they celebrate. But the entire thing is just it's a celebration of life after the physical realm.
mhm,
And I have recently, last year, 2024, was the first year that I made an altar, an ofrenda, because I had lost, um, well, lots of humans and fur babies uh, had passed on. And so I think just enough loss had accumulated at that point. I just made the decision I'm going to do it this year. And I'd had enough of my Hispanic and Mexican American friends validate to me that it's not appropriation, it's appreciation. You're more than welcome to do it. And so I did it. I think I'm going to keep it going. I think this year I'm going to make a little ofrenda as well. Um, but there are so many ways to process loss. And I think it's important too that we reframe grief as, like you said previously, it's not. just this. It's so I frame grief as loss, and I frame the processing of grief as a transformational process where you yourself change too, as long as you alchemize it, as long as you process it and don't let the wound fester.
Mhm.
Because when you can alchemize that grief into gratitude, you find enlightenment.
Mhm.
At least that's been my experience with it. Um, and
You know,
that's a process. Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, I stumbled into that. It wasn't like I read a book and like here's how you do. But I along my journey of alchemizing the grief into gratitude, through the waves of grief, through the layers of grief, through all of it, all of it, books found me. I didn't order these books in the mail. Who sent me this book? But the book is called Be Here Now, and it's very spiritual. It's Ram Dass, and it's from the 70s, and it's like all the acid trippers that then went to India and studied under the gurus and found enlightenment through trying things. And this book just found me, and like it made me cry because it's talking about witnessing the human experience through the lens of the soul journey and just uh, view it through the lens of unbearable compassion. And it just, I was reading this thing, just, I couldn't stop sobbing. Like, and every time I pick up this book and I turn back to like, there's like 2 or 3 pages that just always hit for me. Anyway, just all of these little things from the universe or God or whatever, the internet sometimes, just all of these random things that the tide would bring to my shore by no control or guidance on my part. They were just finding me. Signs were finding me and guiding me on this path of alchemizing that deep loss into love, into gratitude. And it lightens you. After the wound festers, it scabs, and if you can just not pick at it too much, it'll heal. And even after it's scar tissue, if you keep moving and stay mobile, you're stronger and yet lighter.
Yeah.
And that to me,
It's
I've never understood.
transformed, right? It's transformation. And if we allow grief to transform us, like that's a powerful experience. And I think it's easy where it's like most acceptable for people who have lost or like people who died to grieve death. But I also think it's really important to understand that grief isn't always death. And it isn't necessarily always loss either. It's like it's those rites of passage, it's those moments in life whenever something really rocks you and changes you. Like what
Change.
my son's teacher at school mentioned, this was like last year or something, that kids in like fifth, sixth grade, seventh grade start to feel that separation of childhood to like adolescence. And there's a complicated experience with that. And I mean, I kind of remember that feeling, but I never thought about it as something to grieve though either. And that's how she was sort of framing it to me, like these kids need to grieve their childhood. And I was like, whoa, like
Yeah.
that's, yeah, I was like, wow. And I mean, the same thing could be said for someone who's getting married or like, or having a child. I mean, that's
Having
something we
having
talk
a
about
baby.
in Mother Circle a lot is like the separation of the maiden energy. Like, you will never be that. You will always be like whatever's coming next. And you will never not be a mother again, you know? And it's really important to grieve the maiden. It's important to grieve like what you're leaving behind.
I wonder if butterflies ever miss being a caterpillar.
Whoa, right. I don't know.
Do they still dream about crawling on branches and munching on leaves and like having the same, I don't,
Oh,
God, this is
I'm
so profound. I love you so much for this shit, Sarah, but like we go deep like 30 seconds into a conversation, but then we can like buoy back up like it's
well,
not.
and when you said like the caterpillar, I was thinking like the hungry caterpillar and like do they miss eating the strawberries and whatever,
Yeah.
you know, because now the butterflies are just eating like nectar or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And like mamas are eating like leftover macaroni out of plastic bowls quickly. Like
Yeah.
bad joke. But no, that it's true.
Right.
Like you can't go back. You can only go forward. And what has been left behind, what do we do with that? Where does that go?
Right. Well, and I think that when we don't acknowledge that what we've put in the past or what we're no longer becoming, we're
Mhm.
becoming something else, it's really grounding. It's really anchoring in like who we are. Like I am a mother now. I wasn't a mother then, and that version of myself who was not a mother made a lot of mistakes, did a lot of great things, and we can honor her and like also move into becoming something else. And I think that can be said for like the children too. It's like, okay, I used to maybe play with Barbies or Legos or whatever. I mean, I think Legos are for all ages, but you know what I'm saying? It's like,
I actually, though, but I have to piggyback off on your funny Lego comment because you've told me. So, one thing that I've grieved in my life, I'm 41 years old, and my marriage that I left last year, with leaving the marriage, I also grieved among a lot of things. I had to grieve. I'm probably never going to be a biological mother. That motherhood biologically is probably something that's not meant for me in this human experience that I'm having. But what you told me and and I hear your voice in my head, Sarah, telling me this all the time, just so you know, that motherhood is not just a role, it's also an energy. Do you remember telling me that? That was so profound when you shared that with me. It kind of blew my mind, and it still does. Because also I have such reverence and respect, such respect in all caps, respect for moms, for mothers who are in the arena doing the fucking work, sun up to sundown, like mom. And this is why I started Mama Bear. It's it's moms need all the help they can get. And so through my work, I'm able to channel that energy in mothering the mothers, and I've got my bonus son, I've got my goddaughter, and I've got all of these other humans, these little humans that I get to mother, and I'm a mama auntie or whatever. And I'm always like, I don't know what the fuck label I am. That can be fun or frustrating. Um, but I love that reframe because the energy, the Lego comment is what I want to come back to. All of our past selves, right? Like for me, Rachel at 6, Rachel at 16, Rachel at 26. Like I feel like I can still tap into that energy of who I was then. I can still tap into my maiden energy or my child Rachel or and not just in a reparenting way where it's kind of the separate parts of the selves. It's different from parts work. I mean, like energetically, I can tap into 6-year-old Rachel when I'm on the floor having tummy time with my goddaughter, and I can tap into other past me's when I'm connecting with other humans and I think that's another form of alchemizing the grief is you're letting go, but you're holding on. I don't know.
I
What do you
really
think about
think
that?
that I really think that we're meant to have aunties too, right? Like I really don't believe that everyone has to be mothers, but I think that it's really important, right, to grieve that version of yourself that could have been a biological mother because she needs a space to speak, right? Like it's really important, I think. I mean, I've been in contact with a lot of women lately who have I'm 40 also, and so we're in this space where it's like, well, it's either now or probably not, right? It's either it's going to happen now or um and maybe they're in a relationship or maybe they're not, or you know what I mean? It's like there's
Yeah.
lots of different stories that happen. And I think that there is some settling into like, okay, I'm not going to be a mother, and that is really worthy of the grief experience, even if you are the person who was like, I never want to be a mom. That is not me. I don't have a mothering bone in my body, whatever, that's fine. But I still think that there's a space for grief in that because one, the culture, I mean, pushes that on all of us, right? So when are you gonna have a baby? When are you gonna have a baby? And it's like that becomes its own energy or its own
And
entity.
your own biological
Yes.
shouting at you. I mean, ugh, that's yeah. And there is no ritual in our culture for perimenopausal women or what, who are wrestling with like the urgency or the having to accept
Right.
that this may not be in the cards for me. This may just not happen in this lifetime, but I can shapeshift and accept. I can accept and find gratitude in the other way. Like, but grieving that, you're absolutely right. I also
Well,
want to make this is a fun nature factoid before I lose this point. We are one of, I think, like three species, or there's very, very few species on the planet that go through menopause. Have you heard this before? Are you
oh
familiar?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like the orcas and and then us. And it's like, why? And the idea is that we have wisdom to pass on. It's not, we are beyond our capacity for making babies. There's so much more to us to provide our species for advancement and enrichment.
Right. It goes to show that we are needed beyond our baby making capacities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that oh
Found.
man, I mean, that gets into like a whole lot of stuff that I love to dish on, but I think the menopause is a whole thing too, which also, just like the child grieving their childhood, like as I start to approach perimenopause, I feel the grief of like, you know, like I'm not gonna have any more babies, or like you can even see it sometimes when you're like walking in the grocery store, you don't get the same kind of like up and down checking out looks anymore. It's like, I mean, not that that's why I go to the grocery store or anything, but it's just not the same. I feel older, and in so many ways I feel way more badass and way more wise and way more like I love my gray hair and I love my like certain wrinkles. And this is also a really interesting thing, I think, generationally speaking, you know, like women who are older than us often prioritize dyeing their hair, not being gray, trying to prevent the wrinkles, being smaller, skinnier, all that stuff, right? I see some changes happening in the culture where more people our age are like embracing these things rather than trying to fight against it. Maybe it doesn't always feel like super yummy, but we're trying to like be more embracing of those things. I went and got a pedicure with my friend. She's like significantly younger than me, maybe like 12 years younger than me or something like that. And we're getting a pedicure, and the person doing the pedicure is like telling me that I should dye my hair.
Oh.
And because like
Was the person doing your petty of a different culture or
yes.
okay,
Yes.
ethnicity?
And it was just one of those moments where I was like, "Oh, but no, I'm gonna keep this." Like I want it to turn gray. I'm not gonna cover that up. No way. But there was also a generation thing. She was older than me, and I just thought that was really interesting because, you know, as like much more accepting as maybe our generation may be of aging, we still need to anchor into the grief of yeah, I can't drink alcohol until 2 in the morning and clock into work at 6 o'clock. Like that ain't happening. But it sure did whenever I was like 16. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
like I am not
I
that
do.
version. I am not that version anymore. Um,
Yeah.
and I really believe that one thing that I really try to work with my kids on is them knowing that who they are is fluid and flexible, but there is always like a grounding piece to them,
Mm,
you know?
mm.
Because I feel like as a woman, as someone who's been a people pleaser, I've been sort of like in the wind a bit, at times like who am I? What am I doing? Am I supposed to have children? Am I not? You know?
Yeah,
And I haven't enjoyed getting to my 40s and being like, "Oh shit, like actually this is who I am, A B C D," you know? It
yeah,
would have been really nice to know that whenever I was like 20 so that I could live my values whenever I was like 20, you know?
yes,
Now,
yes.
I think that's part of the process. I don't think like I think it takes going through experiences to know those things. So I don't think I could have imparted that wisdom on my 20-year-old self.
And this is why there's so many women who, have babies when they're supposed to have babies. And then in their 40s or 50s, they have their like renaissance period where they're like, now I can be me again. And like they
Right.
just come at it full force. They have their big glow up and like, and we applaud these women, right? We're just like, yeah, sister, I see you, sister, go. Like, and that's beautiful energy too. But a part of it is because I think that's been latent grief. And they've just been like, yeah, right.
Exactly. I mean, okay,
Like an
so
arrow that's been pulled back. And then as soon as they're launched,
yes, I mean, I also have been doing a lot of studying about menopause because I can feel stuff coming, changing, whatever. Um, and I do think that it's also another piece of like um our generation, whether that's, I don't know, millennials or whatever, we're kind of trying to be in the experience of things rather than like just like we're not living, you know what I mean? And or I
be
shouldn't say that.
intentional with the time that we have. Is
Yeah,
that fair to,
whereas
is that?
yeah, whereas like we're not trying to like shut it out. Even like what we were talking about with grief, like we're not trying to shut out age. We're trying to like have a dance with it. We're trying to be in relationship with it. And maybe that's not for everybody, but I feel like as I approach the portal of menopause, I want to see it as that, as a portal into some kind of transformation, right? And that still means that I have to be with like my old version or my old self, grieve that version so that I can fully consume the transformation that menopause could be, which is maybe what those women with the arrow pulled back that like, they have their glow up. Maybe that's what they're experiencing too, is that like, oh, this I fucking went through the depths of the underworld, came back up, and look at how fucking badass I am. I mean, I can feel like that could be possible too, right?
Um,
And I don't know about you, but I just want to be surrounded by menopausal women right now. I'm like, I want all my old auntie ladies to come forward and teach me their
yeah,
ways, like
yeah.
tell me what you went through.
I love my older friends. I love my younger friends, and I learn from
Oh,
all
uh,
of them.
yeah.
I have, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean, was there more to what you wanted to share?
No, I just think there's value in all of it, kind of like what you're saying too.
The thought, my ADD sometimes sometimes I'll be interrupting, my bad. So one of my favorite aunts who lives in San Francisco, her longtime partner's mom is approaching very old age. And with that, she is starting to have some anxiety about end of life. And I was speaking with my aunt about this because she wants to be a support for her kind of mother-in-law, right? Although they're not married, but whatever, like her, like a mama. And for this woman, I was kind of doing some of my meditating and kind of processing it and just thinking through this. And I think the more intentionally, here's like the whole point. I think the more intentionally we can process all of the little goodbyes, better prepares us for the ultimate goodbye from this plane.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that by alchemizing grief into gratitude as much as I can. I mean, to the point where, like Sarah, to reflect and also piggyback, I also look for the grief in everyday life as an opportunity to find the gratitude, alchemize it. I want to like fucking not Rapunzel, Rumpelstiltskin spinning the straw into gold. Like I want loss so that I can ground myself in the love energy and the gratitude energy of what I had experienced that's worth grieving,
Mhm.
right? We only miss what we kind of cherished, what was precious to us. And so I hope that by practicing that divine skill set of alchemizing grief into gratitude, whenever I do get to my end of life, that I can't wait to get to the other side of whatever that is, because it's going to be even more light and full and golden.
Yeah. I'm gonna say something and hopefully it resonates, but I don't think you can have gratitude without grief. Like I know that sounds
Ooh. Wait,
backwards.
let's sit with that for a moment. You
Yeah.
can't have gratitude without grief. Okay, go on
L-
and tell
Let
me
me
more about
explain. Because I see all these like social media influencers and all these people talking about gratitude your gratitude
that. Hashtag gratitude.
yeah, or like your gratitude journal or like process or practice, gratitude practice is what
Mm.
see sometimes. And it's kind of like you can't have the light without the dark kind of vibe, but you really can't sit in the gratitude, like truly let it like wash all over you unless you're like equally seeing how grief is in every piece of it. You know what I mean? It's almost like that transformation piece is like that's where those two dance together.
Okay, so what just popped in my noggin is the sun came out today, but the last 2 days it's been stormy and rainy and gross as shit. And when it was gross and rainy, I didn't avoid that. I didn't complain about that. There was no negative energy. I went out, I still had plans. I still went hiking. I still lived my life with the icky storm rain clouds and was just like, okay, well, this is what it is today. There was acceptance of that. And then when the sun came out today, I was like, thank you. The sun is back. But it was equal acceptance. And the other image that popped in my mind was the tree of life with the, I think you have the tattoo of it somewhere, but like as above so below, the roots and the branches,
Mhm.
how we do have to have both.
Mhm.
So I get it. That makes perfect beautiful sense to me.
Mhm.
And I'd never connected those two.
So I feel like if you have a gratitude practice, my question is going to be where's your grief practice and what
I
does it look
Yes.
like? Because I very much have a grief practice, maybe even more so than a gratitude practice. And I think it's because I've experienced so much loss. I mean, we sort of touched on it here too, but like even relationships ending, divorces, like there's a big grief in that. And I was in like an abusive marriage. So like people would be like, "Why would you grieve that?" Well, absolutely, I need to grieve that, so that one, I don't end up in another situation like that. Or, but two, so that I can recognize when I'm feeling lighter because of it or in spite of it.
Yeah. So do you mind sharing a little bit more about your grief practice?
Yeah. So actually, I have a book right over there. I have two books that are healing grief kind of thing, and they have daily prompts. And so the prompt may be something like, think of the person that you're missing, because again, grief usually means death, right? But you could like even replace that with like a different version of yourself. Like, I'm gonna grieve the maiden version of me, because now that I'm a mother, whatever. And it's like, if you can think of that person, how can you share a happy memory? Can you share a memory that makes you angry? And how is that moment informing you today? Like, that's really general and really like sterile feeling. I feel like there's so much more that could be with that. Also, my 5-year-old, she is just God, she's so nostalgic, and I'm like, I don't think
Mm.
you're supposed to be nostalgic at 5, but okay.
I was gonna say,
I told her that the other day. I was like, "Girl, you are so nostalgic." And she grieves like my mother. Like I said, we went to and my mom's been dead before she was born.
yeah.
We went to my mom's grave site and she knew we were going there, but as soon as we turned the corner to the cemetery, all those stones, when we're driving around St. Louis and we see a cemetery, she'll say something silly like, "Oh, that's where the zombies are," right? But
Mhm.
we turn the corner here where my mom was buried, and she was like, "Oh," she just had like a different energy to it. And last year during Grief Week, and we always have an ofrenda too, and we have a Dia de los Muertos here, um, because of Coco and because of all the dead people in our lives, and we had to put a cat down this year too. So like, um, but last year she had this idea. And so grief practices look like all kinds of things. And she's 5. Okay, you guys. I've never taught her this. She taught me this. She took a picture off the ofrenda because we have one up all year round. She put it on the table. She went and got candles, put it all around my mom's photo, and she got a bowl of water. And oh, my neighbor, we checked on my neighbor one day, and so to say thank you, she gave us like these roses, okay? And so um my daughter got a rose out and it was like on the verge of wilting. And it was all her idea. She wanted us to pass this rose around and take off a petal and share a memory of my mom and put it in the water and let it float.
That is beautiful. Who
I
is
was
this little girl? Oh my
I
gosh.
know she is magical. And I mean, she pulls stuff like that out all the time that's just like, how are you so reverent? You know what I mean? Like, she's
That's
just really
beautiful, Sarah.
exceptional. But so, like, she's taught me a lot about grief. And like I said, my mom was dead like years before she was born. But it's also because of the way I've spoke about our dead. So many times someone dies and then they're never spoke about again, or like it's uncomfortable, or people like, can I ask you about this? And I'm like, please ask me. Or like every time I go home, I want my family to tell me stories about my mom and dad, either individually or together, because
Yeah.
that's what keeps them alive.
Yes. Remember me.
Right. And one of my teachers, Stephen Jenkinson, he's wrote a
Mhm.
lot about people dying. And something that I actually watched this with my mom before she died, and it didn't hit the same, but that's fine. But he has a documentary called Grief Walker. Highly recommend it, okay?
Mm.
And he
Tag
talks
it below the thingy. Grief
yes.
walker. Yeah.
Yes, I was gonna say my two people that I turn to for anything death related is Stephen Jenkinson and Perdita Finn. Highly recommend those two authors. Um, so in the documentary, or maybe it's not even in the documentary, maybe it's like in one of his books, but he talks about how people are really uncomfortable around talking about death and dying. We want everyone to stay alive. And I feel like I'm going to mess this up, but it's like fight the cancer, fight hard so that you don't die, right? And a lot of it is because of it's our own fear of not being remembered.
Mm.
And
Okay.
it's like
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait, pause. Sorry. I'm just gonna go like that when you have a moment like that, so I don't have to verbally interrupt you. Okay, say that again.
okay. So it's like we rah people to keep living, right? Fight cancer. Um, like we tend to be like, "Oh, you're gonna be fine."
Fight, fight, fight. Rage
Yeah,
against the dying of the light.
and the
Yeah.
dying person oftentimes they'll kind of go with that too, right? They'll be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna, I don't want to die. Nobody wants to die, okay?"
Yeah.
But a lot of times we push in that way because we're afraid of being not remembered.
Yes. And what do
And
you
I
think is
think,
beneath that? What do you think is beneath the fear of being forgotten? What is beneath that? I would say you want to make sure that you mattered. You want to,
well, okay, I didn't ever understand this until I did this ancestor kind of work. And once I got it, it was like so profound. But it was like, have you ever heard that meme or that quip that's like, your ancestors did everything to get you here? Have you ever heard that?
maybe. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the idea is, okay, I can't seem to trace much back on my generations because, like, I've been trying to figure out who brought us over on the ship, right? Like, who was that person? I still can't find them, okay? And I realize now that as a parent with my own children, everything that I'm doing helps shape them. Like I've removed my lineage from my small hometown toxic place and I moved to the big city, different kind of toxic. Um, and but yet I have done so much of my own work to like stop generational trauma and like do a lot of things. There's still more to be done, but
Yeah,
I have been saying for a while now, like if I died tomorrow, I would be pleased with how much change I have created in my line. And
yeah.
whenever I understood that, I was like, oh, right. And my like generation 6, 7 back, they were making choices in their everyday life that has eventually affected me today.
Yeah.
You know, this is a really easy, quick story for you to see it. My grandmother, my mom's mom, witnessed her neighbor dying, witnessed her neighbor drowning, I should say, when she was a child. Okay. So because of that, my grandma was super weird around water and always worried about people drowning. My mom was super weird about drowning and water. Guess what? I don't know how to swim. And I used to say, like, maybe I drowned in a past life. No, that one incident that happened to my grandma trickled down. Now, I've done a lot to like halt that, you know, and I talk about it with my kids, and like my partner will go take them swimming, or I go swimming with them, but like he takes them to things like lakes. I don't want to be in a lake. Um, and I'm trying to kind of slow that down a little bit, right? Because that was like just running rampant, and that was like only 3 generations, right? But like things that even 6, 7 were doing back were have been affecting me today. And now I think about that and like that's a heavy burden to carry sometimes, but also like it doesn't have to be that heavy. You know what I mean? It just got to be mindful. And I think about how like yeah, I am making choices in my life to affect my ancestors 6 and 7 generations going forward.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot we could say on this topic, and I want to save it for our parenting
yeah, yeah, yeah.
conversation. But what you're saying is so beautiful and profound, and wow.
But I just kind of want to say that like I think that we want to be remembered because we're remembered whether we're remembered or not.
That I understood.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like we, but
Our lives inherently matter because we will have an effect while we're
exactly.
here on this earth, on this plane.
And even if you don't have biological children,
Hmm. Thank you for adding that.
because I will tell you, we have an auntie that it does not have biological children. She's not biologically family, but she is family. And
Hmm.
my children will remember her and will be affected by her for generations to come.
Well, and can I just, on behalf of the auntie mama that you're describing, um, people like you mean the world to us, who see us and validate us as family, as mama aunties, as major, not minor contributors to their children's enrichment and their human experience.
Yeah.
So it does take a village, but it also takes a shit ton of openness and saying yes to opportunities for that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think that I'm taking applications for more aunties.
Can I be a long distance one? I don't know if that's a thing.
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
I love, and Sarah, this is part of the gratitude is I have so stepped into how lucky I am to be able to be a full-time mama, auntie, bonus mama, god mom, whatever role. Again, it's frustrating because there's so many hyphenated whatever labels. But to just be in these children's lives and to love them and to have their love, oh my fucking God. I mean, there's nothing more sacred and beautiful. But it does take, I think, the permission and the openness and the yesness of the parent and parents. I almost just said the mom, but it's the full family has to be welcoming and open to invite you into that space. And then you have to be willing and able and capable to walk into that space. So, in order to stitch together these villages of self crafting, it,
Well,
it,
and we can
it
put a
takes a
pin.
village in more than just effort. It takes an open heartedness and the eyes to see and the heart. It takes all of it.
We can put a pin in that too, because there's a whole lot to be said about that permission from the parents and
Mm.
where that wounding comes from, I think. And also, there's a Substack I would recommend following if you're interested in being a really wholesome auntie, and it's called the Auntie Bulletin, and I really like her content too. So
Cool.
I'll tag her in the below as well. So,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right, my friend, how does that feel?
It feels good. It feels good. I could keep talking, but we can also cut it off there. Because I think I touched on ambiguous grief. We could do a little bit more of a dive into that, but I think the listeners, viewers, whatever, like when we say ambiguous grief, it can sometimes just mean boundaries with a relationship and change. I think we touched on the fact that it's not just loss, it's change. And so
Well,
anytime a relationship dynamic changes, out of necessity and the boundaries around the relationship changes. Part of the wisdom, again, in alchemizing the grief into gratitude is maintaining the love. The love doesn't go anywhere. It's just the boundary that has to change.
and I think from a somatic perspective, it's like when you begin grief practices, you can recognize when grief is present, and it would very much, I very much had the experience of like, I feel grief. What am I grieving? What am I, and it's like there's other places to feel grief that maybe isn't so clear cut, and that's what you're kind of speaking to is that ambiguous.
Yes, yes, totally. And I love you for mentioning somatics because I didn't even talk about any of the body, the physical aspects of the grief journey. I've been dancing every day. I've been singing every day in my grief journey. Like, in addition to you mentioned some journaling and some other
Mhm.
ways of processing, I have been dancing at, because I'm a big music person and music just this is less spiritual, more anatomical, but music lights up the brain like the 4th of July in
Yeah.
such a beautiful way that music and grief are meant for each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And movement as the third
Mhm.
branch of that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think now maybe I've said everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, catch us next time. We'll
Thank
see you at
you.
the next episode. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
If you liked what you heard today, consider supporting Woven on Patreon. Your support helps sustain the quiet labor of community care, lifting up the life and work of a body worker and tender of soft spaces. Even small acts of generosity make a big impact, nurturing the kind of care and connections that our community needs. Thank you for listening, for sharing, and for being part of this web of support. Until next time, stay soft, stay rooted.